Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. Today we are going to talk about postmodern literature. Previously, as I told you, with the passage of time, we have covered too many areas in the history of English literature. So this is, you could see, after the modern era, we are going to talk about the postmodern literature now. This is your lecture number 26, and the class is History of English Literature, ComSat's Virtual Campus, Islamabad. So my dear students, here you could see the very name post suggests you that this is the era after modernism. So my dear students, let me briefly define modernism once again in front of you. What was basically the true essence of modernism that was in the 20th century. Okay, my dear students, basically at that time you could see that was an age of science, of prosperity, of technological advancements in the country. Okay, so my dear students, you could see all the novelists, poets and the dramatists of that era, they highlighted objectivity there in the era. So my dear students, you could see while talking about modernism, that is entirely a new concept in the history of English literature. Previously that was Victorian age. So my dear students, there were two happenings, two very important happenings as well in the modern era, two world wars. Okay, so my dear students, at that time you could see people, they were very much against the political practices of the country, plus they were against the religious practices. There was a kind of chaos in the society. Most of the novelists of the modern era, you could see they highlighted the social issues or the economical issues of the country. Okay, along with that, we saw while doing modern novels, people, they highlighted the psychological aspects of the personality of human beings as well. So my dear students, basically that was the essence of the modern literature. Okay, and we have seen in the modern literature how they rejected the previous doctrine that was being followed by the Victorian age writers. There in the modern era, you could see the elements of naturalism and realism were very much present. Okay, along with the psychological factors of individuals. So my dear students, basically that in a nutshell I described modernism once again in front of you. So this postmodernism or postmodern literature, you could see that is the era after modernism. Okay, so you could see, so first of all we'll talk about what basically postmodernism is, and then we'll talk about postmodernism in relation to modernism, how that is a kind of revolution against the modern doctrine. Okay, firstly, postmodernism was a movement in architecture that rejected the modernist passion for the new. Modernism is here understood in art and architecture as a project of rejecting tradition in favor of going where no man has gone before, or better, to create forms for no other purpose than novelty. Okay, so my dear students, here you can see when we talk about modernism, what basically is the concept of modernism is you can say this is a movement in art and architecture as the project of rejecting tradition in favor of going near where no man has gone before. So my dear students, I'll just underline this concept for you people. This is basically where no man has gone before. Okay, so by keeping in view the doctrine of the modernism, so we'll do a comparative study of postmodern literature and the postmodern philosophy over here. Okay, so this is basically a project against you can say the traditional you can say philosophy of getting to know about the things or accepting the things as they are going. Okay, so to create forms for no other purpose than novelty. So my dear students, these are some of the aspects of modernism. You'll have to go for novelty, new ideas as far as architecture is concerned, as far as painting or literature are concerned. So my dear students, basically when we talk about postmodernism, so initially it took a start with architecture, and that was a revolution against the modernism. Okay, Modernism was an exploration of possibilities and a perpetual search for uniqueness and its cognate individuality. So my dear students, when we talk about modernism, basically this is an exploration of possibilities, like man should go for too many possibilities of life, too many alternates of life. So you should not just focus on one thing, you'll have to go in relation to other things as well. So basically this is a search for uniqueness as well, okay, like you'll have to do something unique as far as architecture is concerned, or you know, if you want to go for literary writing. So basically this was their purpose, and their focus was on individuality as well. Okay, my dear students, again you can see some of the aspects we are taking from the past doctrines as well, like during the Victorian era we focused on individualism a lot. Okay, so here this is one element which we can say you can say during the modern period that was taken from the Victorian era. Okay, modernism's valorization of the new was rejected by architectural postmodernism in the 50s and 60s for conservative reasons. So my dear students, here you can say like in 50s and 60s modernism doctrine was rejected by the postmodernism, and you can say that was basically relevant to architectural purposes, okay, not in any other field of life. When we talk about literature or about society, about painting, so that was not relevant to it. So you can say up till 50s it was just limited to architecture. Postmodernism was limited to architecture only. So my dear students, like that in search that was basically in search of possibilities, in search of alternate ways of doing something. These are some of the core concepts of modernism. Okay, they wanted to maintain elements of modern utility while returning to the reassuring classical forms of the past. The result of this was an ironic bric-a-brac or college approach to construction that combines several tradition styles into one structure. As college, meaning is found in combination of already created patterns. So my dear students, here we are commenting on modernism, like their philosophy. So you could see basically this is just an imitation of the previous set rules and regulations. So here you can see like the element of novelty is not present in you can say in their creations. Okay, so they were just imitating the previous rules, they were just copying the previous doctrines only. Okay, so here you can see like in order to maintain elements of modern utility, like this is you can say reassuring of the classical forms of past. Okay, so my dear students, here you can see nothing is present, nothing is new which is present over here. It's just revival of the past philosophies during the modern era. Okay, a general and wide-ranging term which is applied to literature, art, philosophy, architecture, fiction and culture and literary criticism, among others. Postmodernism is largely a reaction to the assumed certainty of scientific or objective efforts to explain reality. My dear students, here you could see like postmodernism was basically a reaction, okay, to the assumed certainty of scientific or objective efforts. Okay, so here you just have to keep in mind scientific and objective. So this postmodernism approach is you can say totally against the scientific truth, scientific inventions and the objective reality. So my dear students, here you can say like you cannot depict reality in one way, or you cannot approach reality in only one way. There are as many interpretations, as many individuals we have for the interpretation of something. So my dear students, that was basically the most important theme of the modern period. Like they wanted to judge everything by keeping in view the scientific formulas, the scientific truths, and you can say there was a concept of objective reality here, which was later on rejected by the postmodernists. Okay, there isn't any you can say scientific world, there isn't any objective reality. So my dear students, basically this is a view of the positivists as well. Okay, so postmodernism, which came after modernism, that was a reaction against modernism as well. So it focused on subjectivity a lot, on individualism a lot. Fine. So here this you can say this is not just restricted to, you can say, literature only. So it is a very wide approach which is everywhere, like that is in literature, that is in art, in philosophy, architecture, fiction, and culture and literary criticism as well. Okay, so my dear students, these are some of the fields which postmodernism covers. Okay, so another important aspect of postmodernism is that that we cannot rely on the scientific formulas, on the scientific rules and regulations. So here, like these scientific formulas are uncertain, so you cannot make them objective, or you cannot spread those formulas all over the world, because with the passage of time there would be too many additions. Same is the case with the literature as well. So you cannot make it fixed, or you cannot make it objective for the whole world. So basically this focuses on you can say the subjectivity of you can say any element. Okay, as far as any literary piece is concerned, so you cannot judge it on the basis of, you can say, objective reality, objective truth, or you know, on the basis of a scientific formula. So this is not possible according to the postmodernists. Okay, in a sense, it stems from a recognition that reality is not simply mirrored in human understanding of it, but rather it constructed as the mind tries to understand its own particular and personal reality. So my dear student, this is not just the understanding of you can say human beings. Like reality does not just lie in the, you know, understanding of the human being towards reality, or their approach towards reality. It is something else. It is basically constructed you know, as the mind tries to understand it. So with the passage of time, you can see the amendments in reality as well. So based on your embodied experience, based on the sociological issues where you are living, upon your domestic issues which you are facing, so you can construct the reality. So something which is there, like based on your cognitive abilities, on you know, your psychology, you can construct the reality. So that is your subjective you can say experience, or your subjective judgment towards the reality. So you cannot make it objective, or you cannot generalize it. Okay, so this is basically your personal reality. So personal reality is what? That is the subjective reality, your personal, your individual view towards reality. So you cannot make it generalize, or you cannot say that any particular you can say group of people, they are thinking in the same way as well. So my dear students, here you can see, like this is a reaction of the you know, modernism doctrine over here. As you could see, they were in favor of looking at the reality from the objective perspective, from a scientific perspective. So here this is a debate on personal reality, on subjective reality of the truth. Okay, so it is totally up to you upon your embodied experiences, upon your psychology, like the way you perceive the reality. So this is one of the important factors which is involved in making the philosophy of the postmodernists. Okay, for this reason, postmodernism is highly skeptical of explanation which claim to be valid for all groups, cultures, traditions, or races, and instead focuses on the relative truth of each person. So my dear students, this is really a very important point, because postmodernism, you can say, does not accept the explanations which are, you can say, acceptable for you know, all groups of society, or for all races, for all cultures, and for all traditions. So basically it focuses on you know, the relative truth as compared to the objective reality. So this relative truth you can say is individual, that is you can say a personal judgment towards anything. So according to them, you cannot generalize the judgment upon a group of people on different cultures. So the elements which are you can say involved there in the formulation of culture of society, so those are you can say different from each other, so you cannot generalize anything anywhere. Okay. In the postmodern understanding, interpretation is everything. So it is totally up to the reader, the way he or she interprets the things. Okay, reality only comes into being through our interpretations of what the world means to us individually. So this is not based on any scientific formula, like this is the certain criteria, you'll have to look in it in order to understand the reality. This is absolutely based on our interpretation of the world. Okay, so postmodernism relies on concrete experience over abstract principles. So here you can see the comparison of concrete experience with the abstract principles. So the principles you can say which are not experimented, you can say, which are just you can say defined in the air kind of thing, so those are not being followed in the postmodernism. Okay, so they basically focus on concrete experience. So what basically concrete experience over here is the embodied experience, whatever you experience, so you'll interpret the things in the same way. Okay, knowing always that the outcome of one's own experience will necessarily be fallible and relative rather than certain and universal. So my dear students, this you can say experience is not at all you can say universal, that is always relative, and that is not certain as well, because you can say you cannot generalize that experience on whole population. The element of individualism are very much present in analyzing the thing, in judging the thing. So here you could see like this is all about your experience, the way you experience the reality. So that is basically your interpretation, your individual interpretation of the reality. So you cannot generalize it everywhere in all cultures, societies, or on races. Okay, so basically this is the basic theme of postmodernism. Okay. Postmodernism is post because it denies the existence of any ultimate principles, and it lacks the optimism of there being a scientific, philosophical, or religious truth which will explain everything for everybody, a characteristic of the so-called modern mind. So my dear students, we cannot generalize anything as far as the philosophy of you can say any particular society is concerned. The religious truths we cannot generalize, and same is the case with the scientific principles. Okay, so we cannot generalize everything everywhere on everybody. So basically this is you can say one of the important characteristics of the so-called modern mind. Like there are truths everywhere, like in religion, in science, in everyday affairs. Okay, so there is objectivity everywhere to some extent. On the other hand, when we talk about postmodernism, so basically they focused on human experiences a lot. Whatever you experience, you perceive the reality in that way. So here, my dear students, basically we are talking about the flexibility of experiences and variety of suggestions over here, variety of experiences are present over here in the postmodernism. Okay, the paradox of the postmodern position is that in placing all principles under the scrutiny of its skepticism, it must realize that even its own principles are not beyond questioning. So my dear students, here it is leading us towards you can say the concept of questioning the thing. Okay, so you are not passive observer over here or the passive reader, so you can question anything. You can even question the post-modern doctrine. Okay, as the philosopher Richard Tannis states, postmodernism cannot on its own principles ultimately justify itself any more than can the various metaphysical overviews against which the post-modern mind has defined itself. So basically this is a comparison of metaphysical, you can say, minds and post-modern mind. Okay, So here you can see like you can question the postmodern doctrine, and you can say this is not like a postmodernism cannot on its own principle ultimately justify itself. So whatever the principles of postmodernism are, we cannot justify that approach on the basis of those principles. Okay, that is not a possible task. Okay. So my dear students, here basically we are going to talk about pre-modernism, then modernism, and then we'll talk about postmodernism. Okay, for what basically pre-modernism is, as you know, 20th century literature is known as the modern era in the history of English literature, and at that time modernism was going on. The elements of objectivity, scientific truths, and the ways of looking at the reality, those were quite objective. So here we are talking about pre-modernism. The term pre-modernism, its original meaning is possessed by authority. For example, the Catholic Church. The individual is dominated by tradition. So basically this is a religious movement, you can say, and you can say the rules and the regulations of the society are defined by the Catholic Church. Okay, so basically this is pre-modernism. You could see the elements of religious practices were present over there during that time, and the individual is basically dominated by the tradition of the Catholic Church at that time. So basically at that time it was the tradition of that society, like everything was being controlled by the Catholic Church. Okay, so my dear students, the religious practices which were going on at that time, or you can say the control of all the social practices, was in the hands of the Catholic Church at that time. So basically that was the main doctrine of the Catholic Church as well, like the state would be controlled by the church. Okay, so modernism, we'll talk about modernism in relation to pre-modernism. Okay, the Enlightenment humanist rejection of tradition and authority in favor of reason and natural science. This is founded upon the assumption of the autonomous individual as the sole source of meaning and truth, the Cartesian cogito. Progress and novelty are valorized within a linear conception of history, a history of a real world that becomes increasingly real or objectified. One could view this as a Protestant mode of consciousness. So my dear students, when we talk about pre-modernism, so at that time there was like a Catholic Church in England. Okay, so during the modernism periods you could see the Protestant views are very much common. Okay, so here you can see like focuses on individual, and progress and the novelty of ideas are very much present. Like you should not just focus on one thing only. You'll have to come up with the novel ideas as far as your literary writings are concerned. Okay, so here my dear students, a history of a real world. So basically history is about reality, so that is fixed. So this was their point of view. Another important factor relevant to modernism is you can say Cartesian philosophy as well, like individual as the sole source of meaning and truth. So it is basically all depends upon the individual, the way he or she perceives the meaning. But the problem with that doctrine is that when you talk about individual plus you can say the generalization of individual perceptions everywhere, so that is not possible to judge you can say a person's judgment, a person's suggestions on the basis of scientific formula. So that is not possible. Okay, so here you can say Protestant mode of consciousness, that is also very much you can say present during the modern period. Okay, and the real you can say or objectified truth as well. So my dear students, here we are not giving importance to the embodied experiences of human beings. Whatever you see, that is real. Okay, and that is objectified as well. Okay, so on the basis of you can say scientific formulas, you can check the reality, you can check the truth. So there is one truth only. So when we will be talking about postmodernism, so you could see like there are different ways of looking at the truth. So if you are looking at the truth from this angle, so that is different from this one. So basically the background of you can say individual who are from this side of the reality, that is different from the people who are here. Okay, so my dear students, this is basically the difference between modernism and postmodernism. Here you can see like everything can be objectified. There is one reality only. There are not too many dimensions of the reality. Okay, so dear students, the way they portrayed reality and truth, those are very much important in modernism. Okay, so now we are moving towards you can say the topic which is under discussion today, that is postmodernism. Okay, previously when we were talking about pre-modernism, at that time the religious practices which were going on in England were, you know, were handled by the Catholic Church. Okay, so later on when we entered into modernism, so you can see Protestant views were quite there, like the freedom of human beings, plus to give importance to the, you know, judgment of human beings. That was very much important, and those are the views of the Protestant Church as well. Okay, so when we talk about postmodernism, that is basically a rejection of the sovereign autonomous individual with that emphasis upon anarchic, collective, anonymous experience, colleague diversity, the mystically unpresentable Dionysian passion are the foci of attention. Most importantly, we see the dissolution of distinctions, the merging of subject and object, self and other. Okay, so my dear students, basically when we talk about objective reality or objective truth, so this postmodernism doctrine is totally against the modern practices, like this like you cannot generalize any anonymous or any individual experience on all human beings or any particular group of people. So that is not at all possible, and you cannot make it collective as well, like the opinion of one person that would be similar to another one. So my dear students, in postmodernism basically the focus is on individuality a lot, plus the concept of self and other. Okay, the concept of what is present in terms of what is not present. Okay, and the subject and object. Okay, so my dear students, what are the characteristics of anything which you can say makes it a subject of anything, or on the other hand what makes you can say anything the object. Okay, so basically these are the different distinctions which are made on the basis of certain things. Okay, so basically postmodernism talks about difference, it talks about gender equality, it talks about rights of human beings in society. Okay, but particularly we focus on how to look at the reality, how to look at the truth. Okay, so a thing which is you can say true for me might not be you can say true for other people. Okay, so the way I look at the reality, that is different from the people who are looking at the reality from another perspective. So by keeping in view the multi-dimensional nature of reality, so you'll have to explore literature as well according to the postmodernism doctrine. So my dear students, let me briefly explain postmodernism once more to you people. This is basically a philosophy which focused on individual and which focused on subjectivity of individuals as well. So my dear students, previously when we were talking about pre-modernism, so you could see like everything was in control of the Catholic Church at that time. So it was basically their belief like everything must be controlled by the church. Okay, so church was the main authority. So we entered into modernism, that is also known as 20th century literature, or the doctrine which was going on during the 20th century, that is known as modernism. So my dear students, there you could see like the Protestant views were there, but importance was given to the scientific truths or the objective reality. So postmodernism, it talks about differences, it talks about multi-dimensional nature of reality, or you can say different alternates of looking at something. Okay, so basically this is quite dynamic approach. Okay, this is not just restricted to one particular point only. So my dear student, it leads us towards many interpretations definitions of the text as well. Okay, so by keeping in view postmodernism and modernism, so the idea would be quite clear to you when you are analyzing modern text, modern era text. So it would be easy for you to understand it from that perspective, that the element of objectivity was present there, the objective reality, objective truth, or you can say there is one truth only that can be applied everywhere all over the world. So basically that was their philosophy. When we talk about postmodernism, so here it talks about human rights. Okay, it talks about self and other as well. Okay, it talks about different races, it talks about majority in terms of minority. Okay, so my dear students, postmodernism basically works for the equality of human beings. It is not like any dominating group of the society, and it works for, you can say, anything, and according to that group, if something is true, so you can apply it everywhere. So we can have an example of white man and black man in America. Okay, so for example, that is the white man, they have quite a privileged race over there in America. So whatever they say, that is basically is of greater importance over there. Okay, so postmodernism basically talks about you can say the division of power, and you can say the elements of resistance which are there. So my dear students, according to postmodernism, whenever there is power, there is resistance. Okay, so when you talk about self, so there would be certain elements which are resisting with you. Okay, so this is the concept of otherness over here. Okay, so the distinctions are also very much present here, like how cannot we generalize reality all over the world or any particular group of people, even because there are certain distinctions as far as the individual personalities are concerned, their background, their embodied experience are concerned. So you can formulate the reality which is basically based on your embodied experience. So whatever you experience, you can say that is reality, but that reality is just restricted to yourself, and you cannot generalize it everywhere. So basically this is the main theme of postmodernism. Okay, so you'll see the true reflection of postmodernism on literature, and how criticism is a product of postmodernism. We'll be talking about all these things in the future lectures. Okay, so my dear students, by keeping in view the scenario of England during the modern era, and then later on after the modern era, so the things would be quite easy for you. So here we'll be talking about postmodernism plus post-structuralism, or you can say post-war novel and drama. So what basically this post is, this is like either we are following some of the traditions of the modern period or not. This is basically a revolution. This is you can say an opposite you can say reaction. So basically this is a reaction of the modern doctrine over here. So my dear students, the idea would be quite clear to you when you'll be analyzing the text in future. Hopefully those are written by the black Americans, or those are produced by the different other races, you can say, of England or America other than white man. So my dear students, here when we talk about you can say equality in society, like as far as postmodernism is concerned, so you can say like it talks about you can say gender balance, to give rights to both the genders in society, plus you can say it talks about the class division. Okay, it talks about the shift of power, the resistance elements which are there in the society, and you can say behind everything the elements of power are present there, like those who are in power, they produce knowledge. Okay, so this is basically the main theme of postmodernism. Okay, the power elements which are working behind any institutions, okay, or behind any particular race. What are basically the elements which are behind the discourse? Okay, so it goes a step ahead, so that is why there is a lot of margin for the interpretation by the reader. So this is not only the task of the writer to present the reality in front of the reader, so the reader can also interpret anything according to his or her experiences, according to his knowledge, according to his background, interest and psychology. So my dear students, this is a multi-dimensional approach of discovering the truth or of presenting the reality. Okay, so the things which we have covered in postmodernism, those are very much important. Okay, let me tell you the questions which we will discuss today. What is literature in by keeping in view postmodernism over here? What is the value of a literary work according to the postmodernism approach? Sorry, according to postmodernism. What is basically a text? What is a translated text? What is an author? What is a translator? Okay, what is an author? What is a translator? How influential are concepts like otherness, post-structuralism, post-colonial studies for the practice of translation? So my dear students, here basically we'll talk about the things. These things will take a start from literature and will go for you can say post-colonial studies and the practice of translation as well. Okay, literary theory has tried to answer the question, what is literature? So my dear students, here we are moving towards another dimension, and I just want to introduce this literary theory to you as well. So according to literary theory, what is literature? In postmodern world, literature is just another text. So my dear students, this is the definition of literature according to the postmodern world. Okay, this is just another text. Okay, for Barthes, a text is self-conscious and productive. The text is an activity of production that is endless. Okay, so my dear students, here we are moving towards the definition of text. So according to Barthes, a text is self-conscious and productive. The text is an activity of production that is endless. So basically this is a text is self-conscious, so it reflects your consciousness. Okay, and this is productive as well. You produce text in order to present your thoughts. Okay, the text is an activity of production that is endless. So basically my dear students, here there is no end of text. Okay, so this is the definition of the text according to postmodernist. Okay, Barthes makes the difference between an answering work, that is a modernism approach, and a questioning text, that is a postmodernism element. Okay, a text that never stops producing itself as textuality. So my dear students, here I'm introducing one more term to you, that is textuality. Okay, so a text that never stops producing itself as textuality does. A text that never ceases to be a question, that is inexhaustibly questioning and questionable. Isn't it the definition of a translated text? So this is what you'll have to decide. Okay, so my dear students, you could see an answering work, that is the modernism approach. Like at that time, you could see during the modern era in the history of English literature, people, they had too many questions in their mind about science, about the analysis of those questions. They were very much confused. Okay, so dear students, here you will see like a text is a piece of work which answers something. Okay, so basically according to them, that was the text and that was the purpose of literature as well. So dear students, when we were talking about the novelists and dramatists and poets of that era, so you could see like in that life of chaos, in that life of restlessness, frustration, everybody was in search of finding out the answers of certain questions in their mind relevant to science, relevant to certain other aspects in the society. So my dear students, here you could see like they had to understand, they had to answer certain questions in their minds. A questioning text. So my dear students, here an answering work and a questioning text, you could see a postmodernism approach over here, right? So here you'll see like a text that never ceases to be a question. Fine. So here this is you could see the purpose of writing the text as well. Okay, a text is inexhaustibly questioning and questionable. So this is another like the nature of text is to question, and that is questionable as well. So here, my dear students, you could see the element of critical mentality here. You'll find out. Okay, for example, in order to find out the questions of something, you'll read out the text, and then later on you'll question that text as well. Okay, so that is a questioning, that is a kind of questioning from the reader as well. So my dear students, the test which does not ask you question, or which does not put you in any kind of you can say questioning situation, that we cannot call that piece of literature a text. So my dear students, here this is my question from you: isn't it the definition of a translated text? So basically, a text which is translated from one language to another one, so my dear students, that is usually questionable, and that is in form of questions as well. Okay, modernism, let me tell you some of the points from the modernism or the modern literature as well. So modernism, what is basically modernism? Characterized by a loss of faith. So my dear students, there you could see in that life of chaos, in life of uncertainty over there, people, they had certain questions, like either to follow the world or spirituality, either to go for following God, or to search for the atom bombs. Fine. So my dear students, that is like they lost faith in certain things. Okay, human sensibility has been destroyed by industrialized mass cultures. So dear students, because there was an industrial revolution as well, that was an age of science, so you could see like all these things, they destroyed the human sensibility. People, they were not passionate enough, they were kind of pessimist at that time. Okay, multiple points of view. So my dear students, so there were multiple points of view. There wasn't any certainty during that period, according to certain too many points of views were there. Everybody has his or her own opinion during that time. So my dear students, there you could see like according to multiple points of view, people, they were quite confused. Okay, and this continuous narrative, for example, sometimes those narratives were in another form, sometimes those was very complex. Okay, and you could see characterization and sequence of different events, and the themes, you could see like multiple themes as well there. Okay, so there were variety of situations, variety of themes, variety of subjects matter during the modern era in the history of English literature. So basically, these are some of the points relevant to modernism. Okay, fragmentary structure. So basically, there wasn't any kind of ending of the novels or of other things as well. My dear students, like that is known as fragmentary structure, something which is incomplete, something which doesn't have any end. So it was totally up to the reader, the way he or she can understand the thing or give it a proper ending. Okay, so that is known as fragmentary structure. Absence of authorial center. So this was missing in the romantic era. Experiments with textual means or the works. Okay, so there were certain experiments going on with the works. For example, in novels, people, they were following certain new traditions, and they violated the previous traditions, and they were not even restricted to follow the new or the older ones. So my dear students, here you could see like it is an age of experiment as well. The most famous of these is stream of consciousness. So my dear students, as I told you, like writers, they gave too much importance to the psychological world of the human beings, and they said that it is very much difficult to understand anybody without getting to know about his or her consciousness. Okay, so basically that consciousness is hidden behind unconscious and subconscious. So in order to know about conscious, in order to know about human beings, about their psychology, so this is very much important to judge them, or to have a knowledge about their subconscious plus their unconscious. So that was our doctrine of the modernism. Okay, from meaning to say, from meaning as play. Fine. So basically, like instead of looking at the words, people, they had to find out the meanings of what is basically behind that word. So they played with the words games. Okay, so basically this here our focus is on meaning. So what you are saying, so instead of conveying your meaning in a direct way, so that was very much important in the modern era, that they used to play with the meanings. Okay, they used to present something in form of words, and it was totally in the hands of the readers to get meaning out of that one. So this is how they used to play with the meaning. So my dear students, here you could see some of the aspects of modernism, okay, or the modern literature. Fine. So basically you could see like they did too many experiments with the literary works or with the textual means, or there was an influence of the industrialized mass culture as well. All right, and there were multiple points of view. My dear students, when we were discussing modernism, so you could see over there as well, like many kinds of novels were produced and too many themes were there in the poems as well, because novelists and poets of that time, they tried to highlight the complexity of the modern era at that time. So there they were not bound to use certain kinds of rules or to be within the limitations in order to describe you can say anything. Okay, so they had the freedom of using any kind of language there, either complex or easy, and that was totally dependent upon them, like either they are writing in terms of poetry or novel or drama. Fine. Okay, what are basically the aspects of postmodernism? As I told you before as well, postmodernism came after modernism. Alright, everything is a text as differentiated from a work. So basically this is not work, like everything whatever you are producing, that is a form of text, that is not a work. So here they differentiated between work and text as well. So at the end of the lecture, I'll tell you the definition of the text according to the postmodernist. Okay, denying special value to literary text, nothing is central. So basically here for postmodernism, like nothing is central, neither any kind of character nor plot, or you can say the themes, nothing is central here. Text are assemblies of surface. So basically what is text, what is written, that is just the surface. Okay, what is behind it, that is very much important for the postmodernist. Okay, basically the essence of postmodernism is that like you'll have to go into the deeper studies of the text. Meaning as play, again again the same thing as I told you before as well. It was again totally up to the reader in whatever way he or she can interpret the meaning. So here my dear students, you could say like the subjective element of subjectivity are very much present over here. Previously when we were talking about the modern era, so that was an age of objectivity, okay, an age of science. So here meaning as play means like definitely that is all dependent upon the choice of the reader, the way he or she can interpret the meaning. Literary studies should be seen as the pragmatics of writing. So my dear students, this pragmatics is you can say a subfield of linguistics, where you can say you study the text in relation to the context, like the certain situations which are associated with the text. So then you do the analysis of the text. Such an object is closer to a text. So basically the things which are closer to the text, the things which are very much important in the formulation of text, so that is the central point of postmodernism. A text that allows pragmatics to be understood as ethics. So my dear students, here text, this is text which defines the limits, and along with pragmatics, along with the context, you can see over here like it defines you can say certain limits, and then it is understood as ethics. So my dear students, so basically this is making pragmatics as ethics as far as the text is concerned. So my dear students, these are some of the points relevant to postmodernism. Let me tell you some of the things in order to draw the comparison of modernism along with postmodernism. Modernism focused on scientific truths, okay, it focused on objectivity, while when we talk about postmodernism, so it gives too much respect or importance to subjectivity, okay, or the subjective opinion, and for them there isn't any universal kind of truth, okay. So like reality differs from situation to situation, so you cannot generalize anything, okay. My dear students, basically if we talk about research, so quantitative research is a product of modernism, and qualitative research, when that was entirely a new approach as far as research is concerned, like the subjective opinion of the researcher, that is also very much important, and you cannot generalize something, and you cannot present anything in form of quantity, like in form of tables, graphs, percentage. Okay, my dear students, so basically that was just to clarify the concept of modernism and postmodernism. Subjectivity is more important over here, and there isn't any central power as well over here. Okay, so the text is mixed with pragmatics. All right, they differentiated between text and work, and you could see they gave again the same approach which was at the end of the modernist era as well, like meaning as play. So definitely that game is in the hands of the readers to interpret any kind of meaning out of the text. So here you could see like we are rejecting the modernism approach or the previous approaches to the understanding of meaning as well over here, like no importance is given to the dictionary meaning over here. So my dear students, here you could see like meaning is just like a play, it's just like a game. So everything is in the hands of the readers in whatever way he or she can interpret the meaning. So my dear students, you could see like the subjectivity or the other aspects which are associated with the interpretation of meaning, that is very much important. So it's totally up to the reader, okay, from which era he belongs to or in which area he is living. So definitely everything would help him in interpreting the meaning. So that is why according to postmodernism, pragmatics is also very much important domain. Okay, all right. So previously you could see in the modernism, you could see in the modern era they totally rejected pragmatism. Okay, they definitely came up with you could see this subjectivity. Okay, so my dear students, you have to keep in mind the concept of modernism and postmodernism while analyzing any kind of work. So this postmodernism, that is like post-war as well. So here you'll see like the doctrines and the principles which modern writers they used to follow while writing any kind of work, those are being changed over here in the postmodernism. All right, one more thing, my dear students, I must tell you, like this is not only like postmodernism, like that is right after modernism, so that is why we have given it postmodernism. So basically this is anti-modernism. Okay, like it totally rejects the philosophy of modernism. All right, so for Lyotard, the postmodern condition is postmodern is rule producing as opposed to rule imitating. So previously all the writers, or you could say like the literary figures of the previous era, they used to imitate the things, like whatever is said, they had to follow certain conditions, certain situations in order to fulfill any kind of task. So here this is rule producing. So postmodernism is basically rule producing, and that is not imitating any kinds of previous rules. Postmodern theory is always postmodern literary theory. So whenever, my dear students, somebody asks you what is basically postmodern theory, so that is very much relevant, or you can say that is as it is postmodern literary theory as well. Okay, even when it is about architecture or when it is about television, when this is not only about literature, still that is postmodern literary theory. So what is postmodern philosophy, postmodern theory? That is postmodern literary theory. Okay, as it privileges the autopoietic text over all others. So my dear students, here you could see why that is known as postmodern literary theory. Even if we talk about architecture, about painting, about television, why? Because it gave too much importance to the poetic text. Okay, so that is why this is known as literary theory. So my dear students, for Lyotard, these are some of the aspects of postmodern theory. All right. Okay, for Lacoue-Labarthe and Nancy, postmodernism in literature means that something new, which is the literary absolute or the absolute of literature, that is poesy, production, process and inspiration. So my dear students, here whatever is new that comes in postmodernism. So here, my dear students, we are not following the previous doctrines or the previous philosophies of writing literature. So here this literature means postmodern literature, that is something new, which is entirely new, and we are not here following the past traditions of writing the literature. Okay, so basically postmodernists are not in search of finding out the absolute truth or absolute reality. Basically they were like there is an absolute literature, okay, that is in form of poesy, that is in form of production, that is in form of process and inspiration. You get an inspiration, then you start writing something, that comes in process and then production, and then that production would come in form of poesy or poetry. So my dear students, this is the essence of the postmodern literature. So my dear students, you'll have to keep in mind the definition of text, of literature, and of postmodern literature. All right. The death of history, the death of criticism, the death of theory. These three concepts we will discuss under the definition of postmodernism. Alright. The death of history. For language to have meaning, culture has to have value, and history have to matter. So my dear students, like culture must also be important in order to have in order to draw meaning from the language, and history has certain matters or incidents. But history is a lie. According to postmodernism, history is a lie by which culture disguises the fact of its naturally savage interests and practices in the name of human progress and welfare. Okay, dear students, so according to postmodernists, history is just a lie, okay, which disguises the culture, okay, which is very much important in the formulation of the culture. Like according to the past events, whatever happened in the past, so it formulates the culture of any society. Okay, so basically it talks about the interest of the people who are not present here in today's world, and it is a kind of practice in the name of human progress and welfare as well. So according to postmodernists, this history is just a lie. Then it cannot be possible to have faith in the power of language to convey plain truth. So basically language is dependent upon culture, and it is also about history as well. So here they are denying the concept of conveying your meaning in terms of language. So they are saying that language is not at all a reliable mean to convey your thoughts, your ideas, and your feelings. All right, so this is this is not even reliable to convey the truth. All right, so basically for them language is not at all a reliable mean to convey your truth or to convey your feelings to the other people. Okay, so that is why they were very much against you can say the literal language or the objectivity in language, because it all depends upon the inspiration of the reader in whatever way he or she gets the meaning out of any written text. So my dear student, that was the essence of the postmodernism. Okay, absence of history as a meta narrative gives rise to the dehistorization of context. So basically this is a context, they are not dependent upon any kind of history. Okay, the reconception of literary texts, knowledges, and science. So my dear students, here we are going to enter into an entirely a new domain in the history of English literature, that is like the reconception of literary texts along with the knowledges and the science. So basically when you remove history from literature, so definitely that is known as the rehistorization of context. Okay, the production of something new, that is an element of romanticism over here. So basically you are not going to follow the old doctrines, the old philosophies, the old methods of writing something. So you'll have to produce something new that is based upon certain new themes. All right, so basically my dear students, this is when history is present, so definitely it gives rise to a kind of meta narrative. All right, okay dear students, the death of criticism continued over here. Texts are more than writing due to the multimedia possibilities. Literature then cannot be regarded as a stable structure. Any literary text cannot be exhausted by any act of reading or interpretation. Literature has no essence. So my dear students, here you'll find out the death of criticism in the post-modern literature as well. So my dear students, here this is the concept of the death of criticism. Okay, so here text is not just like a writing, that is something else due to the multimedia possibilities. Okay, so you can convey your message in an easy way. Texts are more than writing due to the multimedia possibilities. So my dear students, here we are not restricting text to writing only due to multimedia possibilities. You could see an image is also text, any kind of picture is also text, a scene is a text. So my dear students, what is that everything is a part of text. Whatever is present in the formulation of text, in the formulation of any kind of literature, so that is text. So credit goes to multimedia over here. Okay, So here, like, this is a wrong approach if we say that literature has a stable structure. So my dear students, in postmodernism, so you cannot see like a stable structure kind of literature over here, okay? So because they were very much against this philosophy that literature can have a stable structure, okay? Any literary text cannot be exhausted by any act of reading or interpretation. So my dear students, here you could see like it depends upon the readers, and it depends upon his or her interpretation that he could or she could interpret the text. So it is not at all. So dear students, you'll have to keep in mind that according to postmodernism, literature has no essence, okay? But basically our focus here is on meaning. Writers can violate any kind of rules and regulations in order to produce any kind of text, okay? So here we are not just restricting text to any kind of writing, that everything can be part of a text. Any kind of images, pictures, you can say scenes, everything is there text, okay? My dear students, basically this is a broader approach to writing literature, okay? So you'll see the death of criticism here as well, right? The death of theory, as I told you, that is the death of history, death of criticism, and the last one is the death of theory. And to apprehend the aesthetic value of literature, theory is an obstacle if it pretends to be prescriptive. It obstructs the passage to a love or a feeling for the aesthetic. So my dear students, here basically your feeling is more important as compared to theory. At whatever is written or according to the theoretical perspective or something, you cannot judge the thing. So it is basically dependent upon your feelings. So definitely here we are giving rise to the aesthetic value of literature. That is not only a kind of a theory over here. So my dear students, here you could see like they give too much importance to the aesthetic value of literature as compared to theory. So everything that is you can say dependent upon the theoretical framework, so they do not give that much importance to that thing. They think that aesthetic value is very much important, okay, which appeals your any of the sense, okay? For example, here you could see like what is basically love, okay? So this, it appeals your aesthetic sense. It does not go into the theoretical framework, okay, my dear students? So from this point of view, you'll have to keep in mind, like, in order to present anything, in order to analyze anything, they do not depend upon theory, okay? Whatever is there in form of aesthetic sense, so that is very much important for postmodernism, okay? For Foucault, okay, Michael Foucault is basically a critic. So according to him, theory is an art, okay? Politics is also an art, ethics is an art, a practice of concept creation, okay? Pragmatics is an ethic. So my dear students, here you could see like we are relating certain aspects according to him. So my dear students, here you could see like we are emphasizing on the importance of theory, that is an art, okay? Politics is also an art, so that is basically your inbuilt quality as well, okay? To you can say to participate in politics or to write something about politics. Ethics is an art, a practice of concept creation. So basically ethics is a kind of practice which creates our concepts. So basically in a way he's just trying to say directly that pragmatics is an ethic. So I told you the definition as well of ethics, that this is a practice of concept creation. So basically pragmatics is also a practice of concept creation according to Michael Foucault. They require skills on how to proceed. So my dear students, here you could see like you need to have certain skills in order to get progress, in order to proceed, okay? They require certain judgment as opposed to determining law. So my dear students, again here you can see like you need to have judgment in order to oppose certain determining laws in the society. So here you need to have power of judgment and you need to have skills in order to proceed in life. This is dispersion as opposed to synthesis. So my dear students, synthesis is an art to combine certain things, that is you could say like a composition of certain ideas. So dispersion is division of those ideas. So basically this is very much important in literature, to divide your ideas instead of composing your ideas. So my dear students, here you can see like again we are focusing on meaning, okay, not on the formulation of the text, pragmatics or on the formulation of you can say literature over here. This is the division of literature, or the way you divide your thoughts and the way you deliver your message to the audience. That is very much important, from the what to the how. So my dear students, here postmodernism focuses on not on what, but it is on how. So basically here when we focus on what, this is just to explore the answer of what is that thing. So this is how here you could see like we are mixing it up with the process in the formulation of the text as well. So my dear students, here we do not just only mean what that text is, but we will focus on how that text is made, okay, the processes which are involved or the hidden practices which are involved in the formulation of text. That is very much important according to postmodernism, and here we are talking about Michael Foucault's point of view. All right. What is an ethical decision in translation? So my dear students, so far we have talked about text, about ethics, about pragmatics. So here we are moving towards another concept, that is translation. Okay, we took a start with literature, and then we move towards translation. So here what are basically the ethical decisions in translation? So my dear students, here you could see like we are going to talk about translation. Okay, it is an aesthetic and or textual practice. So it is at times aesthetic plus textual practice, and sometimes this is aesthetic or textual practice. So we'll have to choose any one thing. Okay, it is both appreciation and obligation. So my dear students, here this is by keeping in view certain ethics you can translate any text, and this is appreciation as well. When you want to translate any text, so definitely you appreciate the text first, and then you get inspired by the text, and then you translate it. If through translation we can show how it is possible to appreciate the cultural values of literature, we are thus engaged in a social practice. So basically the process of translation, that is that makes us engaged in the social practice. So here my dear students, as far as the text is concerned, that is the representation of the whole society along with pragmatics. So my dear students, here if we translate something, definitely we are not just translating the text, we are putting into practice the whole context of that society and literature. Fine. Such an ethics is based on the knowledge that every system is dysfunctional. So my dear students, here you could see like every system is dysfunctional. It means that we are not operating that system in a good way or in a proper way. So basically this is the definition of ethical decision in translation. So how can you take ethical decision as far as the translations of any text are concerned? Okay, what is then a text? So again we are moving back to you could see from where we started our discussion from the definition of a text to literature. Okay, what is then text? A text is an assemblage, not an essence, that relates theory and pragmatics, establishing relations with history, politics and society. So my dear student, that is a question as well, because that is you can say one of the points of postmodernism as well. The text is questioning, that is questionable as well. So here you can challenge this assumption as well, like this is theory plus pragmatics. Okay, so here you can question it. That is why you could see a question mark here at the end of this explanation. All right. What is then a translated text? A translated text is an assemblage, not an essence, that relates theory of translation and pragmatics of translation, establishing relations with the historical, political and sociological context of the text, and establishing relations with the history of translation and politics of translation and the sociological context of translation. So my dear students, again you could see like a translation of text, that is very much important in postmodernism. Like if you translate some kind of text, so basically all the factors which are involved in the formulation of text, you'll have to translate them as well. So that is not possible. Okay, like the factors which are associated with any particular language or any particular culture, so definitely those are all aspects of pragmatics. Okay, formulation of pragmatics, those are very much important. So my dear students, here you could see like we have talked about text, we have talked about literature in light of postmodernism, and we talked about pragmatics as well. Okay, so dear students, that was all about today. Like we just threw light on postmodernism doctrines. So we'll talk about it in detail in the next lecture. So my dear students, here the point is that I just wanted to tell you today the differences between modernism and postmodernism. What were basically the points which differentiate modernism from postmodernism. Okay, so my dear students, I told you some things about postmodernism, that how far that is different from modernism, because it focused on subjectivity, it focused on certain elements on pragmatics, in formulation of text, how far context is important. Fine. So we'll discuss some of the literary figures as well as far as the postmodernism is concerned. So basically, my dear students, this is an era which was started after modernism. So it is entirely different from modernism, and you could give it one more name, that is anti-modernism. So this is very much important in literature, so because it would entirely change the concept of writing literature and interpreting literature as well, because for them literal meaning has nothing. Okay, so you can formulate your own meaning based on the context or your past experiences. So that was all about today. Hope to see you again with another lecture. Have a nice day. Allah Hafiz.